So it's interesting that you're born and raised Virginia Beach. Tim is not from here. He's from Buffalo. I'm from DC. We're, what do they call us? Transplants, I guess. So it's interesting to me because I live this. I feel like most people move out of where they grew up, right? And so you're here, you moved away just like Tim and I did. Is that just something that as a kid at 24, 25, it sounds like, maybe even or younger than that, 22, that you're just like, screw it, I'm going to get away? Or was there something that you were actually seeing that was missing in this area that other places, the Valley specifically, I guess, had? Like, what was, I think you had said, you just didn't want to be here, you had to leave, but like, was there something that you saw missing that needed to be here? Is that thing here now? Where, paint a picture of the region of what you think it needed then and where it is kind of now.
Sure. So yeah, left at 22, like closer to the end, 22, almost 23, because I stayed for the Masters. But I mean, I can't speak about where everything was, but this was 2006, seven, right? And certainly the whole, like, this is, pre-iPhone, right? Like the world was quite different. And so I was, I remember I was listening to a podcast the other day, Walt Mars saying like the pre-iPhone world, get reporters to remember the time before that. And I remember being in Williamsburg and getting the very first Razor enabled by iTunes, like the first, phone that had iTunes in it. And I was freaking pumped. It was so cool. I loved it. And it wasn't, I don't know about Norfolk, Virginia Beach and other areas. I can at least tell you Williamsburg, being in the master's program with the Flex MBA students, was super exciting because I was with like much older people studying down in Hampton Roads every, 2 nights a week. And I was getting exposure to some real business, but it just felt super old school, right? Like the business people, the case studies, the way the approach entirely just felt off. And also just one of those conversations that you just realize, like, once you spent any time. When I was at Apple, I was fortunate enough to go to the West Coast and crash with some of the other Apple campus reps when I was uh 21, 22. And I mean, in one car ride, I remember going from Cupertino, because I was sleeping next door to the campus at a friend's house, and just driving into the city for one day. We're in this drop top Corvette thing, whatever it was, I forget exactly, going up the highway. And I mean, I was talking to people that were working on the craziest stuff, like the camera in your MacBook back then, like the eyesight camera, if you remember, like the technology on that, and how it, like, super pumped they were about this like super minor thing that was like a mind blowing. How like a web, another person was working on the university division, and like just listening to all these people at Apple was just like, where am I? Like, these people are so excited, they're so motivated, like, and I wasn't getting that anywhere, right, from where I was. And so,
Really innovating the world of things that are going to be used by potentially everyone in the world, type of stuff.
and I'm sure there's stuff that I wasn't exposed to as a 21, 22-year old in college, right? Let's be honest. Like, you don't really look much further than the bar and your fraternity and, like, what's going on within that little town, where you can get on your bike or skateboard or whatever you're doing. And so, like, it wasn't like I was like digging in, looking necessarily. From what I'm told, it wasn't here, but I could at least say that within the context of like my friends and family, the people around me in the business school and everything else, I felt like I was the only one thinking about this, the only one talking about it, right? And so I knew I had to go. And there's some other kind of like, you'll both probably get this, but I think that I remember a couple of other elements that I just got super irritated when I would go to other campuses or other events. And it was always, first thing first was, where'd you go to school? What are you doing for a business? Like, what's your job? Like, who's your family? Like, all this shit that I'm just like, I just don't care. Like, that makes no sense to me. And the first question in San Francisco was always like, what are you into? Right. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not where you come from, it's where you're going. And like, that was so distinct to me. And it was like, this is so fundamentally different, right? Like, I am not interested in continuing to credentialize
I don't
myself.
I don't feel like that's changed here. I feel like
I,
that's
I, I'm
still,
sure. I actually don't think that has. I think that's
yeah,
an East Coast thing.
yeah,
Um,
that's fair.
but I remember thinking to myself, like, that's not the conversation I'm trying to have, right? And I didn't know what I was going to do, but it was, very clear to me that I needed to go west. And it seemed like San Francisco because the Apple thing, and then it all kind of just took off from there. But in terms of what you were asking, in terms of where are we now, I've come back for a year and a half now, for COVID, because we have young children, and we actually had our second child here, which wasn't the plan. But I am super impressed with a lot of things. I think there's a lot that has to be done. So I'm happy to get into that. But yeah, I'm not sure where the regional reader listening ship to this or not, whether it's, very Hampton Roads or Virginia or not. But I think Hampton Roads has come a really long way, and I think there's some really exciting stuff happening. It's black and white, night and day different, than what are very involved. And so I love being able to go to assembly in Norfolk, right? And like you meet up with a bunch of people and both mentor and take meetings. I love being able to go to, I was in DC, just 2 nights ago for a dinner, talking about Chinese technology and getting a, invite to go sit with like a think tank of people working on that in Richmond and Williamsburg for homecoming, and then having a bunch of meetings with other, angel investors. It's like, there's stuff going on for sure, which is exciting.
So then, hold on, Tim. So just to piggyback off that, do you think then that these cities should, even though they're 3.5 hours apart, should work together more as a Virginia as the East Coast type of thing, instead of just as a specific city? Or how do you kind of envision that? Because it seems like you did just mention the 3 major cities areas in Virginia. Do you look at that as, and you could even potentially add Baltimore into that if you go up another hour? Is that kind of the Bay Area style where it takes 4 hours to get to those things anyway? So you just look at it that way, or how do you kind of look at that from not just, Hampton Roads, the 757 area, Richmond as its own, DC as its own? Where do you see that as kind of fitting in? Because to me, all 3 of those areas are competing against each other, and really DC is probably the one that's crushing everyone.
Yeah, well, DC is obviously the only real, no offense, like the real city, right? That's pretty
right,
clear.
Of course.
Like, you can't really argue that.
Do people actually argue that? Because I really think that would be hilarious. Like,
well, so I'll tell you this much. I mean, besides not getting into the politics of it all, I think that the thing that I don't understand, which I see all the time, 2 things. Almost everything here is not for profit. That makes no sense. Like, full stop. Like, that's important to have, and it's great. Every place in the world that we build offices that we've invested in, they have some sort of non-dilutive, not for profit kind of thing for startups. That's great, super important. But then around that is a much bigger for-profit sector, that support startups and invest in startups, which is severely lacking, which I think we all can appreciate. I think that creates a byproduct, which I think is also kind of hard to argue, that exists here, which is a scarcity mindset. And everyone seems to still be sort of slowly, like in front of the camera, they're saying, we're working together. Behind the camera, there's elbows out, right? And I've seen it, constantly. And so, yeah. but it's not any individual's fault, because literally they're all fighting for the same grant money, right? They're all fighting for the same kind of teams and talent. And so it's not a surplus mentality. It's always about scarcity. And that's by the design of a not-for-profit, government-backed system. Right?
Yeah, they get their first check. It's always hard for them to get their second, third checks in theory, because they get started and then...
Like, it's just hard in general, right? Like, anything that's government-backed is hard. So I think that this is one of those things, like one of my, I don't listen to him like I used to, but like what I love about, Gary Vee's perspective, it's always it's always more. And like, if you don't understand that, then you fundamentally do not understand how technology works. Like, it is always going to be more and. So anytime that, I start feeling that around here, which is very often, and I've had it in dealings, in kind of back alley, kind of dealings that I get, chopped out of, which have happened since I've been back, which I think is pretty messed up. And also just like, people's unwillingness to say how they feel, right? Just kind of like be honest, being like, hey, I'm threatened by this, or I'm concerned that you look competitive, or whatever it is. And that stuff, you can just have a conversation, right? Like, I think that's another thing. It's sort of like the Southern gentleman, whatever culture of this is, like being quiet and not being direct. And
but I do think a deeper piece to this is when you don't play that game and you do play in front of the camera, everything's great. Like, no one wins in that, because no one gets over, right? And nothing actually gets built in that.
And I think there's like a slow coalition. Like, I've been, trying my best to just have these conversations, right? Like, I'm trying to be as direct as possible for the benefit of the long term. I think version 1 has been built, and I think it's great. I think it's been a fantastic version 1, DC excluded, right? That's a different game. And I think we need to start thinking about version 2. And I think that there's a lot that can be done. And I think, one element I'm trying to bring to the table and keep pushing people on is it has to be by definition for profit. And we have to make sure that we make money to survive, to continue to reinvest in this ecosystem and where we're strong, and protecting some of our gaps and our opportunities, because we definitely are vulnerable in quite a few ways as well. And I think that's going to happen inevitably, because this sort of not-for-profit government-backed gravy train cannot go on forever, and it gets harder and harder every next iteration of whoever's in office, right, to keep that continuity and narrative. So eventually I think that hits a wall. So I think it's sort of inevitable either way.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've got to grow the pie. If that's business, right? For a terrible, yeah. I mean, it's
more and.
Exactly. I mean, and it all comes with sharing deal flow and helping founders grow and supporting the founders. I mean, all this stuff that we can do to grow the pie, share the deal flow, and everybody wins. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's just, to me, it's just so blatantly obvious.
By the way, before we transition, which I think we're about to do, Tim, I had to, Zach, when he first came on, I was like, we first were talking backstage and your head was over here, and then you shift. I go, oh, there's The Rock. Hello. And then the intro happens, like the whole wrestling thing. I go, okay, now I get it. It's like, I was going to have to ask, but I got it.
There you go. Yeah. Look, I'm 37 years old and I still watch wrestling, and it's okay.
Dude, The Rock is the man.
The Rock is the man, but also I think Vince McMahon is a very underrated businessman. The guy turned basically a local circus into a multi-billion-dollar business. And maybe the biggest movie star of all time, or the most popular star of all time, that guy right there, it came out of him.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good eye for talent.
Amazing eye for talent. Yeah. So, and now we transition.
I had to comment. It only took the head to go like this. And I was like, different entire perspective right now.
On these, I don't care about, but sometimes I'll be on a call and I'll meet someone for the first time, and I'm just like, so how's it going? What's happening? And I'm like, should I put a sheet behind it or something? It's whatever. Don't be worried. A friend, a viewer, bought that for me when I first moved into this office, and I was like, yeah, there's a missing there's some missing space there. I should get a poster of The Rock and put it there. So it came. And then what was funny is that's not the poster I would have bought. I would not have bought The Rock half naked. I would have bought him, the fanny pack Rock picture. But
right. Well, now you got to get the Rock NFT, man, and load it up.
The Rock worked out at the gym downtown. Wow, that's crazy to think about.
I don't know.
That's what a viewer just wrote in. So.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't see other comments coming in here.
Yeah. But Facebook has this weird thing on StreamYard where if you're listening in one of our groups, it just says Facebook user, even though that's clearly not.
Well, my understanding is that must have been an early Rock, because the Rock that I know now travels with his private jet in his semi-trailers. So
it's ridiculous.
Are you stuck in your home office, socially distanced coffee shop, or your fancy all bricked out corner office, wondering why no one can see your business and sales are all over the place? Sounds like you need a pro. That's why I developed the Anomaly Academy. Insert clever copy here. Oh, I guess I was supposed to put something else there. Oops. You can grab access to the Anomaly Academy now at ZachMillerSays.com/Anomaly Academy.